Welcome to this landmark moment. I am Jacqueline Barichka, Dean of the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. I am honored to host our program this evening. As you see behind me, there are many pictures. We're going to let these roll throughout our program so that you can enjoy photographs from our retirees, and I'm sure many of you will see your faces there and remember some amazing moments. I am thrilled to see the faculty, staff, alumni, friends, and family here to celebrate our amazing Chaz retirees. While we spotlight our retiring faculty, their successes and contributions to the college and UDM occurred in collaboration and with the support of those here this evening, and those who are not able to be here, and those who are with us in spirit. We then celebrate all who make up the communities of each retiree. So we are celebrating all of you, but we're spotlighting our retirees tonight. So tonight, I'm giving away what the gift is. I wanted to start with this. I'm not sure I can fully, if you guys can see it. So let me pull it out of here really, really quickly because I want all of you to see the amazing gift that each retiree will receive. Delonda didn't know I was going to do this. But I wanted to show this to everyone because, first of all, it's beautiful. Delonda thoughtfully worked and picked these out. So you can see the beautiful clock itself that each will receive. It is engraved specifically for them.
Wonderful.
And there's a quote on the bottom, and this is part of the reason I'm showing this to you. The quote is, "Education is freedom," from Paulo Freire. So I think that captures the essence of who our retirees are. This, of course, is Koukal's clock, so I'll put it up here. Say that 10 times fast. So the reason, and Delonda's like, I'm going to take care of that because she always is amazing.
She's going to make it not.
I know. Yeah, she's such a gift. Can we just give it up for her? This is just, Delonda is amazing. I'm going to thank everyone at the conclusion of the event, but we all know how special our staff are. So each retiree gets presented with this beautiful clock, and then the clock, of course, represents the time that they've spent here, but also the time they will spend into the future. Together, these 4 retirees served UDM for well over a century. I mean, well over a century. They have taught literally thousands of students, having a reverberating impact across generations. The clock, as I just noted for all of you, is engraved with the quote from Paulo Freire, "Education is freedom." Freire, as many of you likely know, was a Brazilian educator and philosopher who remains, although he's not with us on the planet, a leading voice for critical pedagogy. In particular, he believed that each person, no matter who they are and what they do in the world, has knowledge that contributes to our broader societal understanding. The educator's job, then, is to create the spaces and places for that knowledge to emerge. The retirees celebrated here this evening manifest this approach to education that aligns with Jesuit pedagogy and the liberal arts at the core of our university and its Jesuit mercy vision and mission. Consider the term liberal arts in this regard for just a moment. Arts, of course, reflects the unquantifiable dimension of teaching that, despite all of our metrics, rubrics, and assessment tools, is an art. Just think of that teachable moment. Literally, just think about that teachable moment. Whatever end of that you have been on, probably both. You know it when you see it, and you know it when you experience it. And some of you may have some goosebumps right now because you remember that moment, and it is amazing. But this art requires curiosity, risk-taking, and creativity. It means pushing and at times breaking through boundaries. This, of course, aligns with the meaning of liberal, which references freedom or the absence of constraints. At this point, we come to understand why the liberal arts defines Jesuit education that aims to reach for the magis, the more. The retirees we honor here this evening embody the magis, the more, as they walked the transformative journey with their students, as they together pushed the boundaries of what is known into the unknown. Our honorees tonight educated their students to be the change that they wanted to see in the world. We honor your contributions to this most valiant effort and critical profession by educating for freedom. Thank you all for your amazing dedication, resilience, and brilliance. Now, we will turn to each of our retirees as they appear in the program. The program is on your tables. I will offer just a few words for each retiree, who will then come up after I offer those words and receive their gift, which we all know what it is now. And then their department chair will share a few words, followed by the retiree themselves. We will open up the floor for a few brief comments from members of the community present here today who wish to share a reflection. Everybody good with that? Awesome. So, of course, we begin, and these are in alpha order, with Professor Justin Kelly. This evening, and he's right in the middle, so we can all see him. So appropriate. This evening, we honor Father Justin Kelly, Society of Jesus, Professor of Religious Studies, whose service to UDM extends over 50 years and generations of students, some of whom are here this evening, some of whom are alums, some of whom are on faculty, staff, or administration. Professor Kelly, as many of you know, actually started his career in the English department, indicating his interdisciplinary expertise. His generous spirit will live on through his students and in the college and university for decades to come. Professor Kelly, would you please join me to receive your gift?
A PhD in English at Yale, and then joined back when it was the University of Detroit, before it became the University of Detroit Mercy, and then later matriculated over to the Religious Studies Department, and we're happy to have had him for these many years. He began at that point what he has referred to as the re-education of a Jesuit when he joined our department. Justin's teaching and writing have focused on the intersection of spirituality and theology, especially through the lens of literature. In his classroom, students have been challenged to think about the big questions. Who is God? What does it mean to be a human being? What is faith? And so on and so forth. And over the course of his 50 years here, he estimates that he has taught over 5,000 students in his classrooms, some of whom are here today, as Jacqueline mentioned. He served a 6-year term as department chair in the 80s, and in the early 2000s was instrumental in restoring the graduate program in religious studies. His impact in the graduate program has been significant, so much so that 2 alumni of the program endowed a lecture series, in part in Father Kelly's honor, and we're delighted to have Barbara Cushing, who is one of those alumni who endowed that lecture series, here with us today. Welcome, Barbara. Outside of the university, Justin is a longtime member of both the Catholic Theological Society of America and the American Academy of Religion. He has also regularly led study groups at the Manresa Jesuit Retreat House in Bloomfield Hills, where he extends the reach of the university to folks beyond our campus borders. A final observation I would make about him, and this is something that just occurred to me, I think, last week as I was thinking about his tenure here. I may be mistaken about this, but I don't think I am. I think Justin is the last original member of the UDMPU who was still on faculty. So Justin, as the last original member of the UDMPU, thank you for your service, as we would say. So yeah, thank you. For those of you who don't know, the UDMPU is the faculty union here at University of Detroit Mercy. And one last thing I'll say, if you haven't seen it, one of my favorite photos of Justin, I don't think is actually in the photos making the rounds here. On the back table in the back corner there's a little packet of things that he's put together. And there's a picture on the very front of Justin standing there with his leg up on a chair, the sort of swashbuckling young Justin Kelly, who looks like he's ready for all sorts of mischief with his students in a good sort of way. And so have a look at that. But Justin, thank you very much. Good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all these accolades. This is a significant day, as we all know, not primarily because of our retirement, but because of the election of a new Holy Father, and an American at that. I'm sure we're all surprised and interested to find how that will develop. Fortunately, Jacqueline and Todd have used up nearly everything I was going to say. Let me add a little footnote. The same year that I completed my degree at Yale, I lost my job here because of a financial crisis that obliged the university to lay off a couple dozen of us professors in the liberal arts. And it looked as if my career here in Detroit would be a very brief one. I was given 18 months to find a new job, as we all were. By the way, this announcement took place on February 14th, 1974, and so inevitably became known as the Valentine's Day Massacre. However, the following year, a fellow Jesuit, Vernon Ruland, who had a doctorate in literature and theology, took a job out at the University of San Francisco, and so opened a position for me, and which I applied for and got, and so I'm here today. 6 UD presidents, 12 deans of the college, and 51 years later. Anyway, I am happy to have survived. As somebody has already mentioned, I forget if it was Todd or Jacqueline, I learned an awful lot from my transition to religious studies, which I call my elevation to the sacred sciences. And while I learned some of that from attending conventions and reading books and things like this, the major influence has actually been my fellow faculty members, my colleagues, some of whom were from a different background and had different perspectives on things than I did, but because of the people that they were, I came to change my mind about a lot of things. Long ago, the Jesuit theologian Karl Rahner observed that the modern day Catholic lives in a world where he rubs shoulders constantly with people of different faiths and different backgrounds, none of whom seem any worse to him than he is. And that certainly was been my experience. They've been wonderful human beings here. I want to mention in a special way, there's already been a reference to some of my students who are here today, former students who joined the faculty, such as Professor Gail Presby, and not here, but Father Patrick Kelly was certainly another one. But I especially wanted to remember my late colleague, Jane Shaberg, who died 13 years ago, I think, this year. By the way, her tree, a tree in her honor, sits at the northwest corner of the Briggs Building, and I visit it regularly, and it's presently in full flower, and it's a wonderful tribute to Jane, who is a biblical scholar and an ardent feminist who identified, though somewhat loosely, with the Catholic tradition. She had been a religious sister before she came here, but she was a wonderful scholar, and as far as I know, the only person on the faculty who was twice quoted in Time magazine. But I learned a lot from her, and we were good friends, although I would call it a difficult friendship, but sometimes those are the best kind. Anyway, I really want to acknowledge Jane, and I recall hearing her give a lecture at the annual meeting of the Society of Biblical Literature in Atlanta back in 2003 on Mary Magdalene as the principal witness to the resurrection of Jesus, and it was quite a talk, and afterwards I said, Jane, I'm proud of you. I don't know that I have any claim to have pride in her, but I did, to be on the same faculty with her. Anyway, like many professors here, I have sat at annual banquets honoring Professors of the Year, and I imagine the thought has crossed the mind of many of us who are not so honored, why not me? Not that I begrudge any of the honorees who have done the hard work of publishing and teaching and generally been wonderful scholars, but like all of us, I appreciate a little recognition like this. However, I feel honored myself, of course, in honoring colleagues and sharing our common educational endeavor. And I sometimes get all the accord or approval I need from former students, including several who are here today. Some of them list me among the best professors they've had, even though very few at the top of the list. I hope this happens to other faculty members too. Way back in my English teaching days, I read a famous book, then famous anyway, by M.H. Abrams called The Mirror and the Lamp, which was a study of romantic literary criticism. And somewhere in that book there's a footnote that says, the indispensable requirement for scholarship is an absolute indifference to boredom. Well, reading that, I said, now I know, well, I'll never be a scholar. I'm not indifferent to boredom. However, some things that would bore other people don't bore me. And the whole experience has been wonderful. As has been suggested by Todd, my religious outlook is somewhat different now than what it was at 17 when I entered the Jesuits, and even when I finished my theology studies. I believe and hope it's still in harmony with those beginnings, but it's not exactly the same. I've found out a lot that I didn't know, and I owe a great deal of it to my life here at the University of Detroit Mercy. I wish the same for all of you.
With Justin for the last 18 and a half years. It has been a real joy. And during that time, Justin and I have taken a few trips together. During holiday times, we've gone up to Omena It's a small town on the western edge of Grand Traverse Bay that the Society of Jesus owns. We usually leave late morning or early afternoon. For Justin, that's early. We travel leisurely, and we've had some great conversations. Justin has a broad range of interests, and he reads. He stays on top of things. And so he always tries to connect belief systems, faith, church doctrine, with life and with experience. And so the conversations are always really rich. And it's that approach that he has, that's what he teaches out of. So students that he's had have all told me, or not all of them, but a number of them have, that they've really appreciated studying with Justin because it's enhanced their life. You've encouraged people to think and to be personal as they think about faith. One of the things that Justin does is stay in touch with his students. Because on our trips back from Omina, we always kind of go out of our way and stop at a student's house somewhere that he stayed in touch with. There's a sense in which people still consider you kind of the wise person that they refer to. Now, another reason that we travel late in the day is that so we can stop somewhere for dinner. Justin has a few restaurants that he likes on the way to Omina. And when I first got here, one of the things that Justin and I did was go out for dinner periodically. We got together to talk about the Catholic Studies program, and we went to Lou's Deli, which was not one of the high-end restaurants here in town. In fact, when I walked in and I saw all the bulletproof plexiglass, I asked Justin, what did I get myself into? Okay. But Justin stays calm. In a lot of ways, Justin may be one of the most laid-back people I've ever met. There's very few things that will, get Justin riled up. However, Justin has some deep-seated beliefs and some deep-seated opinions, especially about politics. Right? He's very respectful in conversations with people who disagree with him. He's very respectful of his students formulating their own approach to their belief. Nevertheless, Justin does have some strong beliefs. One of the things that I've noticed about Justin is he's a deep-feeling person. It's the deep feelings that are kind of the ground for a lot of his strong opinions. But he's a deep-feeling person who forms very good friendships. He has friendships that go back decades. I'm lucky to consider myself a friend of his now, although a more recent friend than a lot of them. But there were people he was a Jesuit with, people who were Jesuits with him, is maybe a better way to put it, that he stayed in touch with. He stayed in touch with the families of former students. He forms deep friendships. And if there's anything that stands out from Justin, not just his intellectual breadth of interest, but the quality of his friendships and the loyalty that he has to his friends. And I can't think of a better thing to celebrate as you retire. So thank you. It's been great being with you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the community who'd like to say a word? And we're going to keep them a little short, okay? All right, Eric.
Touche. Okay. No, I promise I'll be brief on this. Again, I'm Professor Eric Barnes, criminal justice. I too was a student of Father Kelly many moons ago, and so I had him for several religion classes. In this particular religion class, he chose to do an oral final exam, right? Where we had to meet and schedule times in his office. And then from there, he would ask us a series of questions. He would quiz us. And then we'd offer up those questions. And so I waited, patiently for my turn. I went in there and I thought I was forthright, thought I was giving quality answers. And at the end of it, he just paused and leaned back and he looked at me. He goes, okay, Eric, I need you to have a seat and I'll come back to you. And so I sat there and he went through the rest of the class and I'm sitting there and all these crazy things are running through my mind. I'm like, man, did I fail? I mean, did I say something inappropriate? Did I do anything wrong? And I'm sitting here and I'm sweating bullets, right? And I go through as a criminal justice major here and I'm like, what did I do wrong? Everybody leaves and he calls me back in the office. And he sits there and he looks at me and he pauses. You know, that look that he's giving me right now, right? And he tilted his head back, you know, like he said there. And then he leaned in close to me. And he says, you know, what's your major again? I said, the criminal justice. He said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I think I'm going to join the police department. You looked me in the face and you said, I think there is a better path for you. What you told me. And then he asked me, he said, have you ever considered going into something more spiritual? Have you ever considered going into something more religious-based, something along these lines? And I said, no. I said, no, Father Kelly. I said, you know, I just don't really see that as my path. I really want to go to the police department. I really want to do something in that way. And he says, but I see a spark in you. And I see a natural proclivity to things of justice. And if you feel that is the best way that you can deliver justice, then okay, but think about it. I want you to think about it, because I do believe there's a better path for you. And so I left it here, went and joined the police department, did many years there, which I'll talk about in a later session here, a later part of this. Came back, started teaching here. And 30 years after that conversation with Father Kelly, where did I end up? In the pulpit. I am now senior pastor of a church. Now, when I was asked to be the senior pastor, the first conversation that came into my mind was that conversation I had with you, Father Kelly. The prophetic sight that you had on that day, to see the spark in me that I did not see in myself at the time when I was refusing to acknowledge that. I thank you for it. And I've always carried that conversation with me. I've always carried the humanity that you've placed in me, the compassion, and the time that you took with me that day, even though I was not your major, to see something in me that I did not see in myself. I thank you for it, because that led me to who I am today. So thank you, Father Kelly.
You're welcome.
I think given the time, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next retiree. I know there are many people here who want to celebrate all of our retirees, and I will invite you to share some thoughts and ideas with them, some stories, what a beautiful story, during the final part of the program when folks are enjoying cake and drinks. So now we're going to move on to our next retiree, and that retiree is Dave Koukal. So this evening, we honor Dr. Dave Koukal, Professor of Philosophy, who also served the university across many decades and in many roles. He directed the honors program for a decade, served in multiple roles with the UDMPU and throughout faculty shared governance, leading efforts, among others, to secure the core curriculum in Briggs. So I honored him tonight. He gave me the pin that he was very famous for, and I will always wear with honor, that says, "Make Briggs cool." One of the greatest gifts. He also gave me a thermometer that I can carry around to the classrooms in the summer and other spaces. We will keep this fight alive, Dave, I promise. But his wit, strategic thought, and passion for teaching have left an indelible mark on the college and the university. Professor Koukal, will you please join me in receiving your gift? Amazing. Would anyone like to share any thoughts for Professor Koukal?
Well, I would. Yes, I would just say, quite apart from the air conditioning business, I would like to say thank you for being the conscience of the third floor. Anything any of us were thinking, or at least who thought alike, were thinking but hadn't dared say, Dave would always say. Maybe put it in his window or put it over his door. So thank you for being the conscience of the third floor. We appreciate that.
Well, geez, good Lord, Dave. Oh my God. Whew. Oh God, am I gonna get through this? Jesus. I've only had one beer, so no, I've spent, I don't know, probably 4 years driving in a van with Dave. It's the thing I remember, most about this 25-year career. Just, talking about everything but philosophy, really, music, what the crap the kids are listening to doesn't count as real rock, it's all synthesized now. It's all it really was. But, it really was just quite a scholar, and a teacher. So, I guess I'll carry on, limping along in my career. Good luck on the road, Just think about me now and again. I don't, just, say hello and email or something. That's enough.
Enjoy it, but also visit us or even teach for us. Come back and don't be a stranger. So thank you again for everything, all these years.
And now we will hear from Professor Koukal himself.
Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this short. A couple things. First of all, I've only had one beer. And that's a good thing for you guys because Sharon will tell you that I'm a ridiculously sentimental drunk. And I didn't prepare anything for this, mainly because when you get to this stage in your career, you don't really want to think about it too much. You're kind of excited about it. I admit that when I was doing my grades this term, it was like, I had senioritis. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm done with this forever. But it's really hard. There's too many people to thank. Thank you so much.
And the next person that we are celebrating is Professor Greg Sumner. So this evening, we honor Dr. Greg Sumner, Professor of History, who also has served for decades in the college and the university. A beloved teacher, Professor Sumner brings history alive for his students through storytelling and experiences, including recently educating at the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, and on the road, taking students across the United States, tracing the civil rights movement. Lately, he has become a regular on WJR and provides commentary on current events and various other media sources. His passion for historical markers extends to his love for the Redford Theater, where he serves as resident historian and MC on some of the films. I've had the opportunity to see him in his element. It was wonderful. In the college, we will always remember him singing Christmas songs, along with the person who's sitting next to him, Marty Lever, at our annual holiday gatherings. We hope that they will join us again this year. Professor Sumner's love of teaching, history, music, good films, and historical markers will always remain with us in Chaz and at UDM. Professor Sumner, if you'd like to join me in receiving your gift.
Let David know that Greg and I have, in his honor, a parting gift. It's a Bob Dylan's Christmas album. There's a story behind that.
There's a story.
Well, Greg's been at the heart of the history department for a third of a century, almost as long as there has been a University of Detroit Mercy. From the beginning, he has been one of the department's best and most popular instructors, opening up students to the intricacies and importance of modern American history. His classes regularly fill, and he helps to give students who may never take another history course some of the essential knowledge of American history during this era to help them become better citizens and to develop the transferable skills that will serve them well in a variety of career choices. Greg has been key in the work of the department in many other ways, serving as our #1 recruiter and advisor for many years. More than a few times, his passion for the discipline has converted engineers, architects, and nurses into budding historians. He's been a leader in the department, both there and beyond. He chaired the department 2005, 2006, 2010, 2014, and co-chaired with me since that time. If I'm doing my math right, that adds up to about 16 years, which is half of your time here at the university. You've been department chair. But you've served in many other ways. The dean mentioned some of those. I want to single out, because of your sterling work, your role as a member of the initial McNichols Faculty Assembly. There's a story behind that as well. But on other teams and committees, not to mention several key search committees in history and elsewhere in the college. And at one time served as the director of the pre-law program until it was discovered that as a recovering lawyer, he was steering too many pre-law students away from that career choice. Greg is also a prodigious scholar with 4 books published and a 5th nearly written. For the most part, Greg's scholarship has been in the areas of U.S. intellectual history and World War II. His work in the former area, U.S. intellectual history, has brought him national attention and allowed him to play key roles in external groups such as scholars who work on Kurt Vonnegut and in the Society for U.S. Intellectual History. And Greg, in fact, played a significant role in helping to bring the Society's annual meeting to Detroit this November. Over the last 2 decades, Greg has also become locally and across Michigan for bringing history to the masses. And there's a story behind this as well. We laughed when you said you bring history alive. There's often talking about his 2 World War II books and that experience and Michigan's involvement in it. He often speaks at libraries, to community groups, and to local historical societies. He writes op-eds for the Free Press, and he frequently appears on radio to discuss historical topics in the news. WJR was mentioned. It's been rumored that WJR has him on retainer, I believe. What makes this all the more amazing, as I suggested, is that history is Greg's 2nd career. He has a JD and worked as an attorney before earning the PhD in history. When I personally become embroiled in potential legal conflicts of a civil nature, over the years, I found that a well-timed letter to my adversary, CC to Greg Sumner, JD, usually does the trick. More than anything, and here I'm going to become like Marty David. More than anything, Greg's a great friend and colleague. I lost my own brother 3 years ago, and I found that Greg has more than filled that role. We bonded over the years over history, politics, baseball, pet peeves about administrators and a few colleagues, great quotations from UDM history, which we can talk about after the program, and our classic road trips. Over the past decade plus, Greg and I have traveled together to Turkey on a UDM trip. This is for Eric and Charles. I remember Greg saying during that trip that he only had one fear being in Turkey, and that is he would end up in a jail cell in Ankara with Bob Homan as his cellmate. We had an extended Ohio trip, which had many classic moments. The most unforgettable, however, came during our several trips made as part of our civil rights movement travel course to the Deep South. In 2016, we received a Jesuit summer stipend to develop the course. Upon going south, we discovered Bigfoot Crossing, Wayne and Honey Bunny, the Miracle in Montgomery, but also several witnesses and participants from the civil rights movement that we were able to talk to and that later we were able to introduce our students to on those trips. You can ask about those later. Over the next 3 years, we led students south to Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi on what several described as their best college experience ever. And we're both very proud of that. Enjoy retirement, my friend. We'll always have Applebee's.
Amazing. On behalf of Professor Sumner, Joanne is going to come up and share a few words. Joanne.
Thank you. I'm Joanne, Greg's real wife as opposed to his work wife. And I'm going to read what Greg wrote on a bridge, okay? Most of you know he had a tonsillectomy on Tuesday and is under strict orders to be silent. Isn't that nice? Like that, okay. But he says, Lord knows I've talked enough. Too many memories from my years at Detroit Mercy, too many funny and poignant stories. I'll save them for another day. Let me just express my love and gratitude to everyone I've met along this journey, especially the students. A simple thank you. Now, Greg's musical friend and collaborator, Marty, you know him as the Quiet Storm, is going to continue the remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you. This is an honor, Greg. I apologize. I forgot my reading glasses, but I will be fine. I promise. This could be the most profound words that ever come out of my mouth. So, who cares that? So this is Greg. I wrote a book about a very wise person, the novelist Kurt Vonnegut. Today brings to mind something Kurt remembers. Remember hearing his Uncle Alex say during pleasant moments when he was growing up, even during the discouraging days of the Great Depression. Noticing birdsong in the early morning or the blueness of the summer sky while drinking lemonade in the shade of an oak tree, Alex, a Harvard-educated insurance agent, seemingly the most conventional and ordinary of men, would bookmark his experience by saying aloud for all to hear, "If this isn't nice, I don't know what is." My puzzled and probably annoyed friends can attest. I now use it as a kind of gratitude practice. When things at work go unexpectedly smoothly, or nature reveals itself in a particularly benign way, or I observe people, maybe even me, on occasion, being helpful to others without expectation of reward. I quote the homey but profound words of Kurt's uncle. If this isn't nice, I don't know what is. Thank you, Kurt.
So I think in the spirit of time, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our final retiree. But I do invite everyone to share thoughts and comments as we enjoy a little bit of cake in a few moments. But now I turn to our final honoree this evening, Dr. Charles Wilson, Professor of Criminal Justice, who has served for nearly 2 decades in the college and university. Professor Wilson brought extensive expertise to his classrooms, having served for more than 35 years in the U.S. Army and Army Reserve, where he retired with the rank of Major General. He also served as the City of Detroit's Chief of Police and Executive Fire Commissioner. Students thrived in his courses where theory met practice. Professor Wilson's commitment to his students, department, and the City of Detroit will live on for generations at UDM and in Chaz. Professor Wilson, please join me to receive your gift.
The Detroit Mercy that has shaped me and can attest to the quality of the character that he possessed. As Jacqueline said, he was Chief of Police at Detroit Police Department. We both were there, and we both jumped several ranks together and found ourselves in the executive ranks. But I want to tell a couple stories here, and they may get in trouble. He's leaving, so it's not in there. So one story is when the Red Wings won, and we were all stationed in different places around downtown, and so he was in front of the Fox, and people had had a few too many beers, maybe, the type of beer that David had and Marty had, but they had one too many beers here. And I'm on the radio, and we hear, "Officer needs assistance, officer needs assistance." I'm like, wait a minute, that voice sounds familiar there. And so we had radio codes, right? And so the chief's code was a 2000, the assistant chief, which he was at the time, was a 2100. And then me as a deputy chief was a 2108. And so we hear 2100 calls out. So the only officers that were around were a bunch of elderly reserves. All the other actual police officers were tied up. And so I grabbed them, I marshaled up a posse, if you will, to go back to Marty's cowboy movies here. And I grabbed these elderly reserves and we went over there. And when I get there, Chuck's rolling around on the ground with these individuals trying to hold everybody at bay, right? And so we get in there. And we join the fray, and so we get it together. But at the end of this, we have all these older guys that are sitting here out of breath and barely trying to catch breath here. But he needed help, and so I came running. And so years later, when it was time here to have someone come and help us during a key time when we were starting the Intel program, and I needed help, he heard that call and he came running. And so that's a testament to his quality. One more quick story, and I won't belabor it here, is we had a barricaded gunman situation. He knows where I'm going with this here. And so it was in the winter, we had a bad polar vortex, and we had a very mild winter the winter before. But this winter, we received quite a bit of snow, but the mayor in his wisdom at the time he didn't hire snow plows for the city. He wanted to save money. So all the snow built up, and then it froze, right? So we had this barricaded gunman, and we had knowledge to believe that the barricaded gunman had a police radio. So we couldn't talk over the radio with the team that was holding position. He was assistant chief. He's in the command post, which was think of an RV with coffee and warmth and everything. And I have to run back and forth between our officers in position to run his orders back and forth, and it's cold. So that means I have to crawl on the ground under this and then go back. And after the 5th or 6th time, I'm like, why don't he make his mind up? I mean, whatever we're gonna do, let's do it. So I quit crawling in the snow. So after a long time, I come back to him and I'm soaking wet. He looks at me and he says, "Eric, listen, if I was deputy chief still, I would have had this done an hour ago. What's taking you so long?" I'm like, "Well, the guy won't come out. I mean, what do you want me to do?" So make a long story short, we finished. and the snow is there. His car had sat there so long that it had gotten stuck. So he's trying to get his car out and it's spinning. Well, I had signed out an SUV, so I had a 4-wheel drive vehicle. And so I'm soaking wet and bitter, and I'm driving by, and I see this little puddle there, right? And I happened to drive through the puddle. And the water in the puddle happened to splash him as he get out of the car and trying to wave me down. And he happened to get wet. And so then I kept going because I didn't see him. You know, I was tied up and I was busy, and I kept going. The next thing I hear is the radio, and I hear somebody upset on the radio, 2100 radio, tell 2108 to get his you-know-what back here right now. and so I got chewed out the next day in the office there. And then when he came to work for us over here at UDM, I told him, yeah, you know, I saw you, and yeah, I was a little bit bitter, and yeah, I did splash you, but now it's in there. But I do want to say this about his quality in my time at DPD in here. I was a fresh-faced young man who was thrust into positions of authority, who had no idea what I was getting into or what to do. But God sent me a mentor and someone who poured into me constantly, every day, who would not let me fail, who saw when I lacked confidence, would encourage me, when I was under attack, would protect me. And would pour into me and teach me all the things that he had learned over decades of knowledge. And so he poured into me, he taught me, he mentored me, he protected me when everybody came after me. And you know that, and for that I will always be grateful. He poured into me so much that the rumor started to spread that I was his illegitimate son. And I didn't have a problem with that. Because again, you know, the quality of individual that I worked for, and so I was elated when he came and he decided to come and join us here at the University of Detroit Mercy. He has been an indispensable colleague. The same love and protection and mentorship that he's shown to me, he has given each and every one of these students. I said this before, I told him this there, that there is no finer individual that I know of who can speak to leadership in the field, in the successes of what we've done. If he made one mistake in his life, is he didn't write a book about all the things that he did and he learned, so that someone else can learn the things that I was able to learn from him firsthand. I would not be where I am today, whether it be from a law enforcement point of view, whether it be from a department chair point of view, or whether it just be from a law enforcement security point of view, but for you, Chuck. For all that you did and all that you've seen and all that you've known, that you were able to share that with me. For the students that come along after this who will ask about Chuck Wilson and do that, I'll share with them a story from a poet that I read, and the poet's name escapes me. Maybe one of our English colleagues can let me know. It's about these two men who went on a journey in an unexplored land. They were traveling in this hostile country. And one was older and wiser and seasoned, and one was young and strong. And as they went through, they faced this raging river. When they got to the edge of the raging river, they said, well, you know, the young man said, I don't really know where to cross or how to cross. He could sweep us away. But the older man, who had seen so much, he knew. He said, if we just go down another 500 feet here, we can cross. And so they held hands and they crossed this river. And when they got to the other side, the young man was like, okay, we got to this other side. Let's go on. The older man said, no. Let's stop and you know, let's cut down some trees. And so the young man says, why? Why are we cutting down trees? We are going on. We're not ever going to have to cross this river again. We're going to continue on. But the older man says, no, we need to make a bridge. We need to build a bridge across this raging river. So the young man says, well, we made it across. The older man says, there are people who are coming after us who may not be as strong or as wise as we are. We build this bridge for them. And so I want to tell you, Chuck, you have built bridges here at the University of Detroit Mercy. The students that you have touched have gone on to be further chiefs of police, who have been head of departments, have gone on to amazing and great things, all because you took the time, even though you could have retired and lived on, you know, lived your days out and played on the golf course, to come back and to give back. And so you build those bridges that will last a lifetime. And so I thank you for allowing me to sit what we have in the police department called right seat, where, you know, it would be right over his shoulder. If he was chief, if he needed anything, I would be there to do it. And to show the testament and the quality of the individual that he is, though he was my mentor and boss in the police department, when he came here, he was humble enough to allow me to mentor him and to direct him here. Only a quality individual would do that and would step up and do that. And so, Chuck, I salute you for all that you have done and all that you've poured into. And so I'm going to pin you. Jocelyn, can you take this? We have a thing in the police department where we will pin individuals when they have achieved a certain goal. I have a pin here that we give to all of the graduate students who graduate in the intelligence analysis program when they are successful during my last lecture on graduation day. And so I want to pin you so that everyone will know that you were instrumental not just in this program, but the creation of the cybercrime program. It says, let us not sleep as do others. Let us watch and be sober, right? And so thank you for allowing us to have your time here, and thank you for mentoring me.
Oh, I'll be short. It's choked up. I've done. This is my third retirement now. And, I've practiced enough, but I'd like to thank all of my colleagues that we passed in the hall and spoke. Roy, as interim dean, as sort of an unofficial mentor, you helped me as when I was trying to get to the point of whether I'm going to stay or whether I'm going to leave. Father Tim, where did he go? He's gone. I want to say thank Father Tim. Come in every morning and I speak to him. Gave me a little energy to walk by his office and say, good morning, Father. Others, Angela, Leslie's not here, Delonda. I said they provided me with adult supervision. That's one of the things. You don't get to be a general, and I realize now why they give you an executive and they give you an orderly to keep you on time and to keep you from being lost as you go through your life. This is bittersweet. I've had a very blessed and graced life. God puts me where he wants to be. And this university stayed when everybody else was leaving. General Motors tried to leave. Chrysler left. Ford came and left. I remember when Ford did, and I remember when the mayor's school, I was sent down to talk to them about trying to stay. We were going to provide them with more police service, but they left, went to Lansing. This university has stayed. It says a lot about this institution. The urban-centric Jesuit mercy tradition is important. So many colleagues, and thank you. Boy, that's all. Thank you.
Each of you will remain an invaluable member of UDM and Chaz. This is always your home, and you are always welcome here. Thank you all for being here this evening. Please continue to enjoy some food, beverage, and the good company of our community. Thank you so much.